So we learned enough now to know that there won't be a simple association of a genetic change with the appearance of language as we understand it. And we noted that the theory of evolution by natural selection is a theory about change in biological form in the actual structure of bodies. It seems certain at this stage that there was no major rewiring of brains. The brain structures did not change with the appearance of language. And so the relevance of evolutionary theory for discussions around the origins of language is unclear. There is one intriguing argument that has been made here about a very different kind of biological change that did happen since the last common ancestor of the humans and the chimpanzees, bonobos. So, and this relates not to brains, but to eyes, oddly enough. We humans have white eyeballs. That makes our eyes a very good index of where someone is looking. Because we have a dark pupil and a dark iris on a white eyeball, it's very clear where someone is looking, and you are exquisitely sensitive to the direction of another person's gaze. I'm sure you know that. So in 2007, primatologist, anthropologist Michael Tomasello introduced the cooperative eye hypothesis, a story I think that has legs that will be with us for a while. So it's very important to understand where we are in the evolutionary tree. We humans, Homo sapiens, belong to the family of the great apes. Our closest relatives are the bonobos and the chimpanzees, to whom we are equally closely related, and we'll be meeting these as we go along. It's about 5 or 6 million years ago since there was a primate, some of which went on to become humans, some of which went on a different evolutionary path, which again split to produce bonobos and chimpanzees. Somewhere in that time, in the last 5 or 6 million years ago, we acquired the white of the eye. Apes don't have it. They have dark eyeballs, and so it's difficult for one ape to know where another ape is looking. In fact, Tomasello has checked this and has found that apes do pay attention to where another ape seems to be looking, but all they have to go on is the position of the head. The dark eyeball means that there's not much point in looking at their eyes. So this is a small biological change, a small change in the organization of the body. But what it leads to is a situation in which human infants are constantly raised in an environment in which they are paying joint attention to the same thing as their caregivers and to other children. So their activities become much more coordinated. They become entangled, as it were, in each other. And we know that human infants are exquisitely sensitive to the direction of gaze. We know that within the first year of life, they're checking to see where you're paying attention. Around age 1, they can follow your gaze to find out what you're looking at. And then before they're a year and a half old, human infants can influence their caregivers to make them look where they're looking. So there's this dance that goes on around gaze, which ensures that we pay attention to the same things at the same time. And this seems to be very relevant to the underlying effect of language, which is to create a socially charged, largely shared world that we inhabit with common understanding. So this small biological change might be an important part of the story. Just for fun, here's the white of the human eye, and you can clearly see that the iris and the pupil stand out against that white. And in the middle you see an ape, and you can see the dark eyeball. You can see the contrast. Look at the bottom one. This is not a real ape. This is from Planet of the Apes. Look at those shifty eyes. They've made the apes in Planet of the Apes subconsciously look human by giving them very white eyeballs. Right. We're going to stay with the theme of apes for just a little bit. We've yet to say what we mean by language because language is such a rich field. One thing language clearly allows us to do is to solve problems, indeed to solve problems together. But language allows us to work cooperatively and to transform the planet. Now, we're going to look just at a trivial, almost trivial, very powerful little piece of language, which is the ability to name things, to use labels, to use a symbol or a sound to stand for something else. And while there's been a great deal of research on great apes, trying to teach them human language using various means, no ape has acquired human language successfully. They have exhibited the ability to manipulate shapes and symbols and use keyboards to interact with a limited amount of linguistic capacity. But the experiment we're going to look at now is a very simple one in which all the apes are asked to is to use labels. Here are the two apes in question. There's Sarah on the left and Sheba on the right. They're chimpanzees. Sheba was trained in the use of numerals. That is, she knew what the number 2 stood for, quantity 2. She knew this for the numerals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. She was skilled at these. Sarah did not know this. And there's an experiment reported by Andy Clark here, but the original reference is given at the bottom, in which Sheba and Sarah were jointly presented to the experimenter, and the experimenter would do this. They would repeatedly bring out 2 plates of treats of unequal size. And whichever plate of treats that Sheba pointed to, Sarah got. Now, if the 2 plates of treats have very unequal sizes, it's clear Sheba wants the one with most, we assume. And she gets very frustrated when she points to the one with most that she wants, and it goes to Sarah instead. But now there's a slight variant on this. You bring out the 2 plates of treats and they're covered over so you can't see the treats, but there's numerals outside that tell you how many treats are in there, so 7 and 3, for example. In this case, Sheba can point to the plate with this lower numeral, Sarah gets that, and Sheba gets the one with most. So in a sense, this use of symbols has helped Sheba to remove herself from that very animal flow of appetites, desires, the immediate relevance of the treats, and to place herself in a slightly more distanced relationship to the whole process, so that the use of simple symbols seems to have introduced something new to Sheba that allows her to solve this problem by, as it were, removing her a little bit, by removing that direct link between seeing and doing. There's a lot to ponder in that one little experiment. Now, these days, I think there's no more research done like this. We have ethical concerns for great apes that make some of our past research practices very suspect indeed. The apes that were used here in the 70s, 80s, and 90s have all been retired to a place, largely to a place called Chimp Haven. That's where Sheba went. There she is. I checked the website today. I think Sheba has passed on in the meantime, but the Chimp Haven still exists, collecting the remnants of the research labs doing this work on great apes. Thank you, Sheba.